Whether you're a fan of music or not, music has had and continues to have a huge influence on global culture. For many of us, we couldn't imagine a life without music. So what makes it such an important part of our lives? In this video, I will be unboxing the cultural impact of music and how it has shaped society throughout history. Though it's impossible to know for sure how long music has been a part of human life, research on skulls of early apes show that our common ancestors did have the vocal anatomy and the capability to sing, although it isn't clear whether we knew how to use them. Flute-like instruments have been discovered in multiple places in Europe, thought to be between 50,000 and 39,000 years old. This flute, carved out of bird bone and mammoth ivory, could play a range of different notes and demonstrate that we have a somewhat developed understanding of music, even in our earliest days. In these early days, it is believed that music was used as a way of building community. The bond established when singing and dancing as a group helped strengthen hunting parties and could have been a catalyst for developing culture. So where music started out as a common bond for communities and tribes, the development of society led to a hijacking of music by high society as a way of defining their elitism. If we take what we see in historical movies and period dramas as representative of our history, there has been a distinct rift between the high and low classes for a long time. We can see this prominent divide through the elitist culture of upper-class music, with heavily refined and perfected music performed purely for the elite. To be an educated woman was to be well-versed in sheet music, and expensive instruments such as the pianoforte could be found in most bourgeoisie and upper-class homes. The aristocracy defined themselves as being very cultured, and the complex classical music was composed to be purposefully exclusive. The formulaic, regimented music was more about displaying wealth and perfection than a purely interactive and enjoyable experience. The lower classes, however, maintained the communal enjoyment of singing and dancing. Lack of education meant that music was much simpler than what the wealthy enjoyed, and it followed a more rhythmic and repetitive pattern. Folk songs were more about sharing stories and dancing to create community, but would most likely have been considered crude by the upper classes. By the mid-1800s, the popularity of concerts grew into a more commercial industry, dominantly controlled by the middle class. The quickly increasing demand for music and growing commercial interest in entertainment meant that many composers relied heavily on satisfying the wealthy bourgeoisie to ensure their attendance at concerts. At the same time, composers and musicians were branching out in their work, teaching and writing and publishing music to earn extra money. As the sale of music made it more accessible to the upper class, the concept of popular music that could be enjoyed among the higher classes started to gain meaning. The professionalisation of the market brought about by copyright and royalty laws helped transform the music industry into a capitalist market. High prices for tickets ensured that only upper-class citizens could afford to attend the concerts, and the socially exclusive events were a show of wealth and class for the bourgeois. So how can music help us understand culture? Well, by studying the language used by others to describe music and dance, we can gain a deeper insight into how different societies understand the concept of creating music and rhythm. There are many ways of conceptualising music and dance, and in many cultures, the word for music and dance are one and the same. In the Amazon rainforest, the Suyu use a single word, which I believe is pronounced ngir, to describe the two forms. They do not see movement and sound as separate because both are needed for a performance. In the eyes of a Suya, they are one. So listening to music from around the world can help us to better understand other cultures, how they view the world and how they define life. Much of our modern day music, especially pop, is heavily influenced by various cultures in the Western world. And in multicultural societies like our own or the USA, many ethnic groups, including Native Americans, Latin Americans and African Americans, use music and dance as a form of identity and a key marker for their culture. This has led to the creation of peer groups that express themselves through subcultures in music such as rock, reggae or rap, as well as their associated dance and aesthetic style. As we live in a multicultural society, creativity within the arts has become hugely diverse. Thanks to modern technology, it is far more widely available and accessible to the world. And the variety of genres and hybrid genres has allowed individual music tastes to flourish. As a result, our connection to music is possibly stronger than ever. The birth of rock and roll in the 1950s revolutionised music and Western culture, established by singing bands in the black community, the genre combined gospel and call and response singing with upbeat rhythm and blues. Along with the newly developed electric guitar, the new genre of music quickly became a game changer when it was popularised by white artists like Elvis Presley. The creation of rock and roll radio broadcast the music to the nations, establishing substantial cultural change, particularly for teenage audiences, who, for the first time, were exposed to the raunchy sexual themes of rock and roll. This established a culture in teenagerhood, as new dances like the jive provided teens with the freedom to explore their sexualities. The idea of the teenage experience and the best years of our lives still has resonance today, in movies and music, and more recently social media. From the 60s to now, music has become relatively timeless. While each decade has been stamped with iconic songs unique to their time, many of those songs are still enjoyed today. This is most likely down to the message of the songs. Popular artists such as Bob Dylan, singing about political and social issues of his time, helped create widespread awareness of the effects of war, for example, Vietnam. Although today in the Western world we are not directly affected by war, there is still relevance in the music due to the global awareness of political and social issues worldwide. So why do songs put so much more emotion into these critical messages? Well, this could be down to how our brain processes music. When we hear a song, our ears register the sound waves, pitch, volume, and frequency, and send the information to the auditory cortex. This is where sound is decoded, and signals are sent out to different parts of the brain, including those responsible for emotion and language. These signals are then passed on to the reward circuitry system, where neurotransmitters are secreted and release serotonin. Simply put, music causes more of an emotional reaction than just words alone. It helps our brain process and remember information, and the emotional response helps us feel more empathy towards others' experiences. In some ways, the social aspect of music has come full circle, evolving from a bonding ritual in tribes to a complex and exclusive activity buried in classism, to a communal and shared experience in the form of clubbing and partying in the modern day. When we listen to music over the centuries, we can hear how it has soundtracked our history. So really, to study the history of music is to study the history of humanity.